The Genius Club with Prairie Pine. Chapter 64. The Mastermind. Ryan hurried to pat Alex gently on the back, his voice filled with obvious urgency as he tried his best to comfort his distraught friend. Stop blaming yourself so much. The police officers are doing their best, and they will definitely catch the killer sooner or later, so don't worry too much. Just wait patiently for their results. Alex slowly looked up, his face pale and completely expressionless, and said nothing more in response. There was far too much Ryan didn't know. Too many hidden truths and dangerous secrets that made it impossible for him to make an accurate judgment about the situation. But Alex had no intention of telling him everything, not even a fraction of the truth. He had a strong, unsettling premonition that this was an extremely dangerous path ahead, and he couldn't bear to drag Ryan into this deadly mess with him. "Come on, Alex. You'll catch a bad cold if you stay here in the cold any longer," Ryan said softly, gently pulling Alex to his feet and brushing the dust off his clothes with careful movements. "Shall we go home now? You need some rest." Alex replied softly, his voice barely audible as he nodded his head slightly, his mind still clouded with grief and confusion over what had happened. Ryan quickly hailed a taxi and accompanied Alex to his apartment building. Still not feeling at ease about leaving his friend alone, he insisted on walking Alex all the way to his front door, refusing to leave until he was absolutely sure Alex was okay. "Alex, are you feeling any better now? Look, you really can't blame yourself for this. You invited Professor Hughes to the celebration dinner out of pure kindness after all. You have to pull yourself together for his sake. If you really want to do something to honor Professor Hughes, clear your head and try to remember every small detail from the scene, the license plate number, the driver's features, any little thing. Help the police find the killer soon and avenge him." Alex nodded slowly, his mind finally starting to clear a little as Ryan's words sank in. Ryan's words, though blunt and straightforward, made perfect sense. Instead of wallowing in endless regret over what could never be undone, he needed to turn his overwhelming grief into strength. He needed to do something meaningful for Professor Hughes, find the ruthless killer and the mysterious mastermind behind the murder, and make sure they paid dearly for their unforgivable crimes. In this regard, Alex knew far more than the police ever could. He was much closer to the hidden truth, and he could spot subtle clues that the police might easily overlook entirely, clues that could lead them straight to the real culprits. "I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I'm feeling a little better now," Alex said, forcing a faint, reassuring smile to calm Ryan's worries, even though he still felt shattered inside. But Alex didn't sleep at all that night. He was wide awake, his mind racing nonstop with countless questions and overwhelming grief, unable to shut out the horrifying images of what had happened to Professor Hughes. Who exactly killed Ethan? Alex muttered to himself quietly after cleaning up and putting on a warm set of pajamas. He sat down at his desk, staring blankly at the wall as he tried to piece together the confusing puzzle of Ethan's death. Conventionally speaking, pharmaceutical companies and greedy capitalists who feared the success of the hibernation chamber research were the most likely suspects. Ethan's groundbreaking research results and the hibernation chambers that would soon follow would deal a devastating blow to their enormous economic interests. But deep down in his heart, Alex knew it wasn't that simple at all. He shook his head slowly, dismissing the thought entirely. Capitalists were greedy, that much was true, but they weren't foolish. Killing Ethan at this critical juncture served no real purpose for them. Then, Alex, suddenly remembered what Big Face Cat had once told him, his voice echoing clearly in his mind as if it had been just yesterday. I may not look like much, but my father was a famous mathematician back then. He even won prestigious Fields Medal, you know. I was working odd jobs outside the city at the time, and my daughter usually stayed with my father. One quiet midnight, she suddenly spiked a high fever and started convulsing violently. My father picked her up in a panic and ran straight to the nearest hospital. And then, a huge truck came out of nowhere and hit them. It ran right over both of them without slowing down. Their target was only my father. My poor daughter was just an innocent collateral victim. I don't know why. My father was just a quiet, bookish scholar. He never offended anyone in his life. It's a very secretive and powerful organization. So secretive that no trace of it can be found no matter how hard I look. I've been investigating for so many years, but besides a single name, I've found absolutely nothing at all. Alex reached over and turned on his desk lamp, a faint flicker of realization crossing his face as he slowly connected the dots. Mathematician, midnight, killed in a brutal car accident. Compare that to Ethan, scientist, 042, killed in a similarly vicious car accident. The person, the exact time, the type of incident, the three key elements were shockingly similar, almost identical. Could this really be just a random coincidence? The time, 042, was also very strange. Was it purely accidental, or was it carefully intentional? If it was indeed intentional, what could the hidden purpose be? And how had they managed to ensure Ethan died exactly at that specific moment, down to the very minute, without any mistake? Alex thought long and hard about all these questions, but he couldn't reach a definite conclusion, no matter how hard he tried. The biggest problem was that he couldn't be sure if Big Face Cat was telling the truth or not. He had lied to Big Face Cat before, so it was only fair that Big Face Cat could lie to him too. Given Big Face Cat's unpredictable personality and his tendency to exaggerate, there was no guarantee he wasn't just making things up to mess with Alex or gain his trust. Of course, there was also the possibility that he was telling the complete truth, something Alex couldn't rule out. It was an awkward and frustrating impasse, leaving Alex's reasoning stuck in place, unable to move forward at all. If Big Face Cat was just lying to me, then all of this is just me overthinking things again, he whispered to himself quietly. But if he was telling the truth, a cold chill ran down Alex's spine as a terrifying possibility slowly dawned on him. Ethan's death, just like the tragic death of Big Face Cat's father, might have been carried out by the same killer, the same mysterious organization. Alex wasn't entirely sure if the Genius Club was the direct culprit behind the murders, but at the very least, the organization was inseparably connected to both tragic deaths. It just had to be. So, the key to solving everything still lies with Big Face Cat, Alex realized with a sigh. It all depends on whether the information he gave me is true or false. Only then will any further reasoning or investigation mean anything at all. The most urgent task right now was to go into the dream world, find Big Face Cat, and figure out once and for all if he had been telling the truth about his father and the mysterious Genius Club. Alex looked out the window, where the sky was already bright with the first light of dawn, and the neighborhood was bustling with activity as people started their daily routines. Even though he hadn't slept a single minute all night, he felt no trace of tiredness, only a burning, unwavering determination to find the truth. I'll go to the office today. Staying at home alone will only make me overthink and drive myself crazy. I'll sleep early tonight and find Big Face Cat in my dreams, he decided firmly, grabbing his jacket and heading downstairs quickly. He bought a simple breakfast from a nearby convenience store on the way and then headed straight to the subway station. On the electronic screen in the waiting area, the morning news was reporting the accidental death of Professor Hughes, but few people around paid any attention to the tragic news. Everyone was busy with their own daily lives, rushing to work or school, just like any other ordinary day. It couldn't be helped. Most people were indifferent to scientific progress, both in the real world and in the future world of his dreams. No one cared about how science was developing, why it wasn't advancing as fast as expected, which scientist had passed away, or which one had won a prestigious Nobel Prize. People cared more about everyday things like prices, salaries, and their own daily lives. Even trivial celebrity gossip was more talked about than the death of a great scientist. It's always been like this, Alex muttered quietly to himself as he boarded the subway and grabbed onto the handrail. He felt the heavy weight of history pressing down on him, the overwhelming smallness of an individual in the vast, unforgiving river of time. Even when he reached the office, the atmosphere was much the same as usual. His colleagues briefly expressed regret over Professor Hughes's sudden death, but their sorrow was quickly overshadowed by the huge success of Ryan's new product and the upcoming bonuses and raises they were all looking forward to. That night, Alex finished his dinner early and lay down on his bed, eager to fall asleep. He checked the clock. It was exactly 21:35, the perfect time. If he fell asleep now, he would arrive just in time to intercept Big Face Cat at the plaza in his dream. I have to find a way to trick Big Face Cat into admitting if he was telling the truth, Alex thought to himself, his eyes still open. I need to see if the information he gave me about the Genius Club is reliable or just a made-up story. If Big Face Cat was telling the truth, if the Genius Club really killed his father, if his father was truly a Fields Medal-winning mathematician, and if the time of the car accident was roughly the same as Ethan's, then Alex would at least have a vague direction to follow. He would have a solid lead on who the real mastermind behind Ethan's murder might be. Since Big Face Cat had been able to find the name the Genius Club, that meant the organization was definitely connected to his father's tragic death in some way. At the very least, there was a clear link between them, and that was enough to keep Alex going, even when he felt exhausted. He fought off his overwhelming tiredness, quickly washed up, and then collapsed onto his bed, turning off the light and closing his eyes tightly. Whoosh! The familiar warm summer wind, the stifling heat, and the loud chirp of cicadas surrounded Alex as he slowly opened his eyes. He was back in the familiar dream world, everything exactly as he remembered it from previous nights. Ultra kick, ultra elbow. The two young brothers were playfully fighting on the plaza, their movements growing more intense as they chased each other farther away, their colorful Ultraman masks falling to the ground in the process. Alex stepped forward calmly, picked up one of the discarded masks, and put it on his face. Then he turned around, his gaze firmly fixed on the stocky man, who had just gotten out of a beat-up van parked nearby. "Big Face Cat," he called out loudly, his voice firm and clear enough to be heard over the noise. "Huh. Huh." The burly man, who was wearing a Rhine cat mask, turned around in surprise, his eyes narrowing with caution and suspicion. "Sigh." Alex sighed helplessly, feeling a wave of frustration wash over him. Every single time they met, he had to go over the entire complicated story again, and he was tired of repeating himself, tired of wasting precious time on endless explanations. What? How do you know my name? Big Face Cat snapped angrily, staring at Alex warily, as his hand slowly reached toward his waist, likely reaching for a weapon hidden there. Slap! Alex quickly reached out and grabbed his fat hand tightly, stopping him in his tracks before he could do anything. I hope this is the last time I have to repeat this, he said, his voice cold and serious, leaving no room for argument. Listen carefully.